classes that are more than 40 semesters and geared to schools, community groups, businesses, churches, and temples. She's developed seminars such as adolescent psychology, the parent version, sexting and texting, what's a parent to do, and understanding your teens' drinking and drug use. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Joani.
So excited to be in California. I came for wonderful weather. Got to see my two best friends. This is like the best trip ever. So I'm very excited to be here. I hope by the time you walk out of this seminar tonight, you will have a new understanding of why your team does what they do, and then you'll go home and do something different. This is very hands-on, tools, not a lot of theory, just a lot of practical application. So on your way out, not at the book table, but certainly you can stop there too, but on the back table, there are my cards, and I write a parenting blog, and I write every Tuesday and Thursday. And so it's, sometimes I do, if there's major news stories that are happening that have to do with kids and teens and schools, I'll not cover the news story, but try to give its application to how you might use that story with your teens, so that you could, as a teaching moment. And I do parent coaching, even though I live in the East Coast, we still have telephones, and I do a lot of phone coaching. So without further ado, I want to get right to the information at hand. So I'm going to start with a factoid. The number of new brain connections that are made during adolescence is equal to the number of brain connections that are made in the first 18 months of life. So if you think of your infantine now, in previous life as an infant, when they came out of that womb, they were completely 100% dependent on you for care and nurturing. And by the time 18 months rolled around, they were walking, they had language, they certainly had likes and dislikes, their personality was pretty out there, and that's just enormous change in 18 months. So that amount of brain growth is going on in your kid's brain right now. And because of that, they are literally having feelings they have never had before. So they're experiencing so many firsts at this point in their life that they are easily overwhelmed because they have no experience dealing with them. So just puberty, just put puberty out there, right? That's, they got a brain, they got a body changing that they can't control. And then they are having feelings that, they've never experienced before. And they can be extraordinarily distracting. I teach, as I mentioned, I teach college. And when I get to the adolescent, I teach an intro to psych course in the first semester. And when I talk to my students, when we get to the adolescent point, I always ask them to write me a sort of a short essay about what their own adolescence was like. And so I had this one boy who, I didn't think he really had to give me this amount of information, but wanted to let me know how much masturbation played a part in his life. I was like, okay, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that with me. A+ for honesty. This kid's 18, 19, so he's still very much, I don't know if that's much a part of his life, but certainly when he was 13 or 14. But they are having sexual feelings they've never experienced before. So that in and of itself. Then you add just the idea that they are understanding the world in a very different way. So they're having new thoughts they've never had before. They're having worries they've never had before. So this is a list of stressors that teens have given me. This is not my list. This is a group of kids did this list for me. And I'm not going to go through every one of them, but let's just look at academics. For many kids, for most kids, middle school and high school is the first time that they are ever aware that there's a future that what they do in the present might affect. So when they're in elementary school, they're not worried, and you're not worried about what college they can go to. But even as middle school starts, the pressure starts. Oh, well, honey, you better do, you need to do well in, XYZ if you want to get into the honors class when you get, or the AP class, or something when you get into the high school. And so already in middle school, when they're 12 years old, they are being made aware of what's ahead of them. And that, so that's pressure that they've never felt academic pressure before. They might, they know maybe you got mad at them, when they didn't get a good grade, on a math test. But it wasn't like, well, if you get a bad grade in third grade, on your spelling test, that's going to ruin your future. So, they are really thinking, so these are new thoughts for them, just academics in and of itself. Body image, huge in adolescence. And, the whole social networking, especially with the whole selfie revolution, that makes the whole, we all suffered from, body image issues as we were teenagers. That's just part of the deal. Kids probably have body image issues. I mean, that's just like part of what happens when your body changes. But now, your body is not just open to scrutiny from your middle school or your high school classmates, but once it gets on Instagram, and everybody's got 3,000 followers on Instagram, so now their body is being scrutinized, and they're measuring themselves up to not just kids they know, but kids they don't know. And it's, and people judge them for it. People are saying you're hot, you're not hot, she's this, she's that, he's this, they're that. And we never had to deal with that. We didn't have to deal with public scrutiny of, every pimple on our face. So that adds another, so these are all the kinds of things that are stressing your kids out because I call it the brain on overload because they never stop. It's just a constant stream. Relationships with family and friends. Their relationships with you are changing, and that's a good thing. But it's stressful for you, and it's stressful for them. I mean, they are going through what we call separation individuation. That's a theoretical term. But this new brain of theirs is allowing them to step back and look objectively at you. And in that objectivity, they're saying, hey, I just realized I'm not as much like you as I thought I was. In fact, I'm really different from you. I have different interests. I have a different way that I work. I have different activities that I'm interested in. So maybe in elementary school they did everything you wanted them to do. You got them hooked up, with piano lessons or kindergarten or whatever the things were. And now they're hitting adolescence and they're like, wait a minute, I hate piano. I never really liked piano, but like you were so enthusiastic about piano and I loved you. I'm going to do piano for you, even though it was a struggle. But now they're starting to say, I don't want to do X, Y, Z anymore. And for parents, this is a huge adjustment because you've had a certain expectation. I had a parent that I worked with whose daughter was a competitive gymnast all through elementary school and was very good at it. And her dad was the one who would take her to her meets because there were 3 kids in the family and he was sort of like the gymnast guy. And he would take her to all of her practices and her meets and whatever. And then she hit 9th grade and she didn't want to do the meets anymore because they were on the weekends and that's when all the kids were hanging out. And she realized that if she continued, it wasn't like she was going to go try out the Olympics. It was an interest that she had in elementary school, but then in middle school, but now it's like, I don't want to do that. It's interfering with my social life, which of course is the most important thing to them. And that dad was really, it took him a long time to let go of his attachment, not hers, his attachment to her gymnast career. And, he put, quite a bit of pressure on her, and they ended up, having some issues around separation because he was disappointed in her, and because it was a part of life he shared with her. And when that happens a lot, like you've been coaching or you've been a part of whatever it is that your kid's doing, and then they pull away from that, that takes your role away too. That may have been something that you connected with your kids about, and now that's not there, and then it's like, oh, now what do I do? What do I have to, so that's, but, they're worried about disappointing you. That's not something they really thought about before, so that's in the mix here. Relationships with friends, huge transition happens here, where, but in the past they were interested in what I call activity-based relationships. So, they would go to each other's houses and play games and, play video games or, play with whatever kids are playing these days. And they didn't really care who the kid was. Like when they're in elementary school, it's kind of like anybody can do, literally. And, if there's, a half day for school or something, I don't know how it works here, maybe it's a half day or a weekend, they'll just start like going through the student list. Can you come over? Can you come over? Can you come over? They're not really that selective. And then they hit adolescence, and this new brain of theirs, this ability to think on a deeper level, that's a brain change, is now allowing them to step back and say, wait a second, I don't like you. We really have nothing in common. We did when we were kids. And again, for you, that could be a disappointment. Maybe your son or daughter was best friends with your best friend's son or daughter. It was like one big happy family, and you go on trips together and family dinners, and it was like your social life. Your social life was all around, your kids all liking each other, and then they go off to middle school or high school. It can happen in either place, and then you notice that kid is not part of your teen's life anymore. And maybe your friends even say to you, hey, so-and-so never, doesn't return so-and-so. You get in the middle of it, hasn't returned so-and-so's text. And so that can be a loss for you because you depended on those relationships for, they were easy. You knew who the parents were. You shared maybe same values, same rules of the house. And now your kids are out there in the world making decisions about who they want. And sometimes they bring home kids that you don't like and that you think are not good influences on them. And from your kids' point of view, the pressure, and especially social networking, and all of the group texts and who follows them on Instagram and who comments and who doesn't comment and who likes it and who doesn't like it. Now people are quantifying popularity. That's never happened. That's never happened to say, I have this many people who like me. And so self-esteem is really challenged at this point. And for parents, it's really important to understand you can't make them not do the social network. We're going to talk about that later in the seminar, but not minimizing how important that is to their life. It's part of us that goes, oh my God, this is the stupidest thing ever. If they spend half as much time on their homework as they did, on their social networking, they'd be like a genius level, getting all A's there. And so, it is from our adult brain, it does look like silly and stupid. But from their perspective, it is extraordinarily important. And it's important for you to get how important it is for them. So rather than saying, get off your phone, I'm sick of you, spending hours and hours posting and reposting and taking selfies and posting them and reposting, to use language like, and this is what I call I get it moments, is to say, I get how important this is to you. I get how hurtful it is sometimes when someone doesn't like you back, or you get excluded from a group text, rather than say, well, what do you care? It's just because we are looking at it logically and rationally. They're not thinking about it logically and rationally. And so if they hear you being judgmental and being critical about something that is unbelievably important to them, they're going to stop talking to you about it. And it is really, you're the only sane person in this equation. And it is important for you to let them know that it's important to them. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to think it's good. You just have to understand, I get how important that is to you. And so when you see them looking down in the dumps, because maybe, they posted a picture and nobody responded, or they only got 2 likes instead of 30 likes or something, rather than saying, well, that's ridiculous. What do you care about, honey? You know that, it was a good picture. Rather than doing that, saying, that must have felt hurtful to you. Because when they feel understood by you, they are going to be more willing to come to you when things get tough on that whole social networking. Boy, you want them to want to come to you. Let's just do a few more. There's a lot of these. So just imagine, think of a bubble above your kid's head. Okay, think of a bubble. These are all in that bubble. And, all of them are of equal importance to them. Oh, health issues. And some of you maybe have kids who athletics is a really important part of them and a really important part of their identity. And maybe, they got injured this year. And, they got taken off the field or whatever the sport is that they did. And their whole identity is locked up in being a soccer player, a field hockey player, a skier, whatever the thing is. And so you see maybe a kid who's what you're seeing is angry, you're seeing frustrated, you're seeing them being short-tempered with you, and so you're paying attention to the anger, the frustration, and the attitude, and if you stop and say, wait a second, they lost something huge to them this year, and they have no, they can't really, it's like, there's nothing you can do about it, you can't make it better. And so sometimes it's important not to just react to attitude, but to go, what is really going on here? Rather than saying, I don't like the way you're talking to me. Thinking about what else could be going on, rather than saying, give me your phone, give me your iPad, give me this, and you can have it, I don't like the way you're talking to me. You can say, wow, I was just feeling, this must be a really hard time for you this spring. You can't do, you got the knee thing, you can't play soccer. That must feel really bad for you. And you can't fix it, you can't make the knee better. You don't want to say, oh, why don't you try for the school play? Why don't you do this? Why don't you try for that? Don't try to problem solve. Just understand. So that's a lot of parenting a teen is just understanding, not changing what your expectations are. You don't have to do that. You don't have to, if there are consequences for behaviors, I'm not saying I'm going to change that, but I want you to at least think about, wow, that is a really long list. And kids often cannot articulate to you. They don't want to say, yes, I'm feeling really bad because I'm not on the soccer field. But that's what's really at play. Maybe your family is going some kind of transition. Maybe there's a divorce. Maybe you have an elderly parent who's ill. Maybe there's a job loss. Whatever kind of family issues. Even though kids will look like they're handling it okay, probably there's a lot going on inside this brain, going, zing, 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 zing. And you might need to say, this has been a really hard time for our family. I know you haven't really talked about it much, but I guess this has been stressful. So the important thing here is to recognize that they are, not only are all these things going on, but they're thinking about them in a new way. And they're having, this intensity of feeling that they never had before. And here's why. I want to talk about their brain and how it differs from our brain. So they did a really interesting study at Brown University. And they wanted to see if the adult brain was the same as if it would behave the same as a teen brain if they were given the same task. So the task was they were each put into an MRI scanner, both a group of adults and a group of teens, and they were shown pictures of human faces. So, one of the faces might have been this. That would be fear or shock. Scary Halloween face. And so there were, fear and sadness, and depression, the whole range of human emotions. So when the adults were given that task, they all correctly labeled the human faces, and the part of the brain that was in the highest activation was the frontal cortex, which is the thinking part of the brain. That's exactly what they assumed they would find. And their hypothesis was the same thing would happen with teen brains, that they would function in the same way. When they did that same tasking with the teens, most of the teens, mislabeled the human face. They saw anger where there wasn't anger. They saw fear where there wasn't fear. They saw disappointment, disgust, frustration, where that's not what the face was showing. And when they looked at the part of the brain that was in the highest activation, it was not the frontal cortex of the brain. It was the amygdala, which is the emotional center of the brain. So literally, you're living in a thinking brain. They're living in a feeling brain. And so I call it the awesome brain. And that's why, they are like so quick, whatever, if there is any kind of emotional connection to something, whether it's like, oh my God, the oh my God moments. Oh, we should do this weekend. And so oftentimes you'll get just sort of the demand, we're going somewhere, without asking, there's no question there. It's like, this is what we're doing, and we expect you to slave, pick us up, take us, buy us, give us money. And so they get excited, they get angry, they get frustrated. That's why when they do homework, if it's not going well, they go nuts. Why? Because as soon as that amygdala, think of it as a volcano that is living in your teen's brain, and it is always ready to erupt. And so they are hypersensitive to your tone of voice. This is one of the first big tips of the evening. So they are hypersensitive to your tone of voice. So for example, if you know that they had a quiz at school today, maybe today, right? Maybe they had some kind of quiz at school today, and you know that they were online and on social networking way too much last night, and you know that they really didn't study that well. So they walk in and you say, so, how'd that quiz go today? Okay? So, so what they're hearing is, you think I flunked, you already know I didn't do it, they hear judgment and criticism in your voice. And so then what you get is attitude back, or nothing. Fine, I did fine. And you get no information, okay? So that they are, very in tune with your voice. And so you remember, I'm sure your parents and your grandparents said to you, it's not what you say, class, it's how you say it. And with teens, there is nothing that is more important, and it is biology, okay? And so it does mean you have to change what you do. If your goal is, I want my teen to talk to me, then you have to be conscious of how you connect with your teen, whether it's, so for example, your kid comes home from school at the end of the day, and maybe you pick them up, maybe they get off the bus, maybe they walk, whatever they do. And you've got your list in your head, right? You want to know, did they go back and get help from their teacher? Did they, what happened, in their, at their soccer practice? Did they speak to the coach? And how did that quiz go? And you've got like an agenda, right? You know all the things that you're trying to keep up with your kid. And parents are information junkies. Because we have been trained, since your kids were in, preschool and daycare center, because they, the lunchbox would come home, with what they didn't eat. So then you knew, okay, they had the yogurt, they had to have a sandwich, and so you were clear on the calorie count for the day. And then, they might be a little note from the teacher, had a bowel movement today. So it's like, okay, check, bowel movement. And then there might be like a sad face, did some biting today. So you would get like a report back from your kid. So and then in elementary school, your kid would come home from school and you say, how was your day? And they would be like, and then we did this, and then we did this, and they'll go on for, and also you still have elementary schools, they'll go on for an hour. I mean, you have to shut them down, but you get addicted to that information. So now they get into middle school, they get into high school, and all this stuff is going on for them all day long. Whatever it is that's in the forefront. So they walk in the door, and you start nicely. You don't go right into the inquisition. You say, so, how's your day? You get like the grunt. And then usually there's two things that a parent will do. So if it's the grunt, you might go, I don't like your attitude. I just asked you how your day was. That didn't require that tone of voice. Volcano goes off, what tone of voice? I don't have a tone of voice. What's your problem? I did not. I just said it was fine. And then it's like, give me a phone. Give me your iPad. Give me a computer. Give me this. Give me that. And then, you're walking around with a bean bag, with all their tools. And so, they heard in your voice already, they were like ready. They were ready for action, and they completely shut down. But the other reason they shut down is because their brain is overloaded with everything that might have happened to them during the day. So maybe they raised their hand in class, they thought they knew the answer, but they didn't, and they pulled their hand down, and they were embarrassed. So embarrassment, of course, is the number one emotion that kids feel in adolescence, that idea of being hyper self-conscious about everything. And that's because it's a new brain. So the new brain is allowing them now to not only see how they measure up to other kids, but how other kids are judging them. And so that's a big change. So that's why they're so worried about what they wear, and they're so worried about what they say, and they're so worried that, they have the same things, and the same phone, and the same clothes, and the same backpack, and the same, whatever it is that everybody has, that whole idea of conformity, because it's it's their one way of saying, okay, at least I'm invisible at that. At least people aren't looking at me, I'll wear out boots like everybody else, or whatever it is that California wear, Boston like boots, isn't it? So they are, they may have had a lot of embarrassments, little mini embarrassments, but they got tucked away. Stuff those down. And then maybe, they had lunch and they got like ketchup on their shirt, and they're walking around with their hand all day over their ketchup stain because they're worried other kids are going to say, oh, wait, you a loser? You don't know how to eat? What's wrong with you? Maybe someone took a picture of them and put it on Instagram, So all these slights happen during the day. And so, they can't run in the bathroom and cry, because these are the little ones. These are the ones, you broke up with me. These are like the little things. So they stuff them down, and then they get home, and then, all you have to say is, how was your day? And they go wild, okay? So rather than, so some parents respond with I don't need that attitude, and some parents will respond with, oh my God, what happened? You know, like the red flag will go off. It's like, oh, something must have happened today. Honey, is everything okay? Are you all right? Did something happen? You know, you want to tell me? I'm here. You know, and they're like, I was fine. You know, screaming. And then you're like, oh my God, something really happened. You know, so, and then you go, you know, you're shaking in your shoes. You know, you're terrified something bad happened. So, probably nothing of major import happened, unless this has been a pattern, really a big pattern. So here's what you're going to do instead. You're going to give them a pass on this one. Because this is not about you, okay? This is bad timing. Think about, you know, this volcano in your brain is completely overwhelmed. They need it to just quiet down. And so even just something as small as how was your day, you know, kind of, it's like, you know, brings up whatever it was during the day that really bothered them. So what you might say instead is, I get it, it's been a long day, let's just check in later. And then you just leave it, and you leave them. Listen, you need time when you get home too. So think about, you know, what it's like when your kids are all over you like a rash. What are you having for dinner? How do you ride? Can you give me money about my field trip tomorrow? You know, and you've got like 1,000 requests coming, and you know, what do you say is, I just walked in the door. Give me 15 minutes, okay? So your kids need that as well. And it's a setup for you, because you're not going to get what you want anyway. So just leave it be. And then maybe you go upstairs with the, you know, maybe later in the evening, you know, the basket of laundry that's been sitting on the landing that you said you would do their laundry, but all they had to do was bring it upstairs, it's all folded nicely, and now they're just pulling the clean clothes, right, out of the basket, never actually picking up the basket and bringing it upstairs. So maybe you bring the basket upstairs and they'll say, well, you know, do I hear a thank you? You know, don't go there. So, you know, you're going to bring the basket upstairs, and then you might sit on the bed and you say, hey, so how did that quiz go today? Which is very different than, so how did the quiz go today? So be really mindful. And it's work. It's not easy. But if your ultimate goal is, I want my kid to want to talk to me. And most kids, you know, feel the judgment and the criticism coming. And so they just ward it off however they can. So, you know, this emotional brain is really what's in play here. So it's very, very important to keep that in mind. Okay. So, because of this emotional brain, and because your kids are separated from you, because they are pulling back and saying, you know, you're not so perfect anymore. I never knew that. There is a lot more arguing and fighting that goes on in adolescence. And it's not a bad thing. I mean, you know, it's not an easy thing. But the reason it's not a bad thing is because it's showing that your kid is trying to define themselves as separate human beings from you. When your kids are in elementary school, you're like their number one. There is nobody they would rather spend more time with. And they do see you as being perfect. You know, they maybe you're not there sometimes, but basically, you know, you're a perfect person. And that feels really, really, really good. Okay. Then they hit adolescence, and this new brain kicks in, and one of the things it allows them to do is analyze. You know, that's why when they get to middle school and high school, they're being asked to do more sophisticated analysis of stories and history and math, and, you know, because their brain is growing and it's able to think more deeply about things. And so one of the things they think more deeply about is you. And so, like, I always say that having a teen in your house is like having an in-house therapist, because they'll be very open with you about their feelings and feedback for you. You know, and your kids, you know, you get so much unsolicited, you know, advice from them. Why are you wearing that? Don't show up to my soccer game, you know, wearing your, you know, whatever. I hate those jeans on you. I don't like that outfit. You know, what kind of food do you have when my friends come over? You never have anything good in the refrigerator. It's embarrassing. Here's what I want you to know. Then don't talk to my friends when you're in the car. I hate the sound of your voice. You know, that's a big one. Kids hate the sound of their parents' voice, okay? And they hate the sound of their voice because they hear already, because as parents sometimes are like ready to get on it. You know, what did you do? What much homework do you have? You know, blah, 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 did you you know, and so that's what they're ready for. And so now they're just like going to say, they're going to try to tune you out both verbally and behaviorally. They will literally turn you out, and they will also tell you to shut, you know, they might even say, shut up. They don't talk to me, okay? So Some of the fighting is their way of separating, trying to reframe it in a positive way, of saying, I'm not you. I have my own thoughts now. I'm not just going to accept your way as my way. Because maybe it's not my way. And maybe I'm more different than you than I had thought before. And that's like a new aha moment for them. So one of the things that kids do a lot is what I call, these are 4 different fights that I think are sort of the common arguments that parents and kids have. So the first one is the gotcha fight. So the gotcha fight are these sort of snarky, sarcastic digs, little digs, just to kind of show how smart they are, how much smarter than you they are. And they love pointing out your, any kind of hypocrisies, as I do as I say, not as I do. And so they will gladly share those with you. My feeling is that if you can listen to some of the things that they say, just listen. Perhaps they're right about something. My daughter, for example, is 32 now, but I used to interrupt a lot because it was like, it was more just when I got so excited. I sort of anticipated what I thought she was going to tell me, and so before she even finished, I'd be like telling her what I thought she was going to say next. And, it just kept coming up. It was like, will you just wait and let me finish? She didn't say it in a nice way, like, Mom, it would be really nice if you could just let me finish. And maybe I would really love to hear, what you're trying to do. No, that's not what you said. So, when I kept hearing the same thing over and over again, I had to stop and say, am I not listening? Am I jumping in? And I was. And it was really good feedback for me in my work too. I tend to get over enthusiastic and, want to talk over people. And so it was really good feedback for me. So sometimes your kids actually do say something that you might learn from. And it might, so it's worth not getting defensive about it, not first, with the first thing that you hear. But kids do it's kind of like bullying. It's kind of like having a bully in the house. And, so I'm not talking about the real, outright disrespect. I'm talking about just those little sarcastic, you know what these are. And so, what do you want to do with a bully? You want to take their power away. So, oftentimes when parents get those digs from their kids, they either do nothing, which is not good, or they say, don't you talk to me that way, after they just did. So that's not really that effective. And so, either way, the absence of giving attention or the giving of too much attention, like giving too much weight, or you might say, that really hurt my feeling. And for me, for a kid, thumbs up moment, I hurt your feelings? Not in a sadistic way, I hurt your feelings, but we're like, oh my God, I am so powerful now that I can just say nice hair, and that will send them over the top, because really, does it really hurt your feelings? So when their kids are younger, saying that, because the last thing your kids want to do is disappoint you. And so when you would say to a 10-year-old, that really hurt my feelings, cry, they show remorse, feel shame, teens, no shame, no remorse, no. So what I wanted to do instead is something that completely will take them aback. And because you want to take that power away, not by being sarcastic and not by giving it back to them. You don't want to, be like sarcastic and mean to them. But I want you to do something really unexpected. So in these little fights, I want you to go up to them, give them a big hug, and go, "Oh, you're so cute to be in a front like that. I love you." And so, when you, because that's not what they're expecting. Okay? Not expecting that from you. And so for them, it's like, well, this isn't fun. They're not getting mad, because that's a thumbs up moment too. Ooh, we're gonna go all pissed off. That's good. So they're not pushing any of your buttons, so it's not fun anymore. And if you sort of behave like that, they'll just stop doing it, because it just won't be that much fun. And I'm not talking about in-family teasing that everybody kind of does that. But I think you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's what we call the gotcha ones. Okay, the second one is what I call the no ones. So one of the things that happens in adolescence is your kids are starting to do things that you don't want them to do. And, because they are literally seeing the world through a new brain. They are seeing all the opportunities and all the things that are options that they could do. And so they get overwhelmed with all the choices, and that's that emotional brain. And, all the kids are sitting around in the cafeteria or all in group text, And they're like, oh, I know what to do. And then they all make the plan. And then they come to you. And they say, about you doing X, Y, Z. And maybe, so these are for the times when it's a no because it's unsafe or it's unreasonable. Going to a concert on a Wednesday night, sleeping over during the week, going to a house where there's no supervision, knowingly. So, the kinds of things that you would absolutely say no to. So what happens is, you say no, and then you launch. Of course, crazy? You think you're gonna go out on a Sunday night to a concert? You're gonna go to homework? You're gonna get up? You go into, of course, all of the reasonable answers about why they can't do it. But all they heard was no. That's all they heard. And when they heard no, because in their head, they already are doing it. And that's the thing about this emotional brain. You're an adult and you're thinking things through. You're saying, well, how could they even think that I would say yes to going to something on a weeknight, whatever the reasonable, logical explanation is, because they're not thinking, when you say to them, what were you thinking? Not thinking. Feeling, but not thinking. And that's why it's so important to understand that their emotional brain speaks first, the thinking part, not really there. And so you have to just understand that. It's going to go away. This is just time limited. Trust me, it's just a moment in time. They will work this stuff out as 30, 35. And so, what you need to understand is when you say no, when you should say no, and you should say there are many, many things you have to say no to because it's unreasonable and unsafe. But understand that they're not going to say, thanks, Mom and Dad. That was a great parenting thing that you just did to keep me safe. Thank you so much for doing that. No, they're going to get pissed at you, and they're going to yell, and they're going to start screaming, and they're going to get out of control. And so what generally happens is they put you on the defensive. You can't do anything. I don't know what your problem is. You're just bothering me. And they go to town on you, and then either you can't stand the conflict, so you give in. Or, if it turns into a full-out, enormous, huge fight, which then it's like, you're grounded, you're not going anywhere, give me a phone, give me this, and then that's sort of your go-to punishment. Give me a phone. I don't like the way you're talking, give me a phone. Well, first of all, when you say no to them, you have to expect they're going to get mad. That should be like a normal expectation. So when they get angry and maybe somewhat disrespectful, they're not going to thank you for saying no. So once you get that, you don't have to fight. If you feel this is not a knee-jerk reaction, no fight. This isn't like they want to get a ride to somebody's house and you've got 30 kids and you're just tired. It's like, no, I'm too tired, I'm done for the night, the car is closed, the kids are closed, I'm done. It's not that kind of one. It's when, it is clear for you, no, this is not happening. When you are clear about your no, now you can be on their side in terms of offering up understanding and empathy. And this is what will de-escalate that fight, because what happens with these no fights is you don't want, once this part of the brain of theirs is set off, they are not going to listen to reason. They don't want to hear your explanation. They're not interested in the logical, why they can't do it, the rationale. They could care less. It's just, they stopped at no. So what I want you to do is different. I want you to say, it's another one of these I get at moments, just say, I get you really frustrated, I get you really pissed off at us, I know that's not the answer you wanted, and I'm really sorry. And then this is my best parenting advice of the night. And you do a little shoulder shrug, and that puts the period on the end of your sentence, okay? It is a way for you to tell yourself, shut off. You've said all you need to say. Your kid will go storming off, and they'll just, they'll leave you in the dust. But you did not engage in a fight that you did not need to engage in. Again, if you're clear, then you don't need to engage. And then, because your kid loves the engagement. They, love getting angry. It's a release for them. It's very cathartic. And also, maybe you've given them reason to think that if they wear you down, they will end up getting what they want. So maybe in the past, a lot of times what happens is that maybe when your kids were 3 and 4, these same teenagers, when they were 3 and 4, maybe they were that kid who had great verbal skills. See if you recognize your kids in here. Great verbal skills. And they would use those, not knowingly, to manipulate you. But that's what it would end up happening, because they would be like, I just need to watch, 15 more minutes or play 15 more minutes of this video game. And I know you would want me to really, they would come up with some very rational kind of, a conclusion about why you should let them do whatever they do. And you're so like, admire this verbal, ease they have, that you end up giving in. It's like, yeah, that really makes sense. So even though you really just needed to say, no, I'm really sorry, done. So you might have some kids who have kind of learned that they know just how to get you to that point where you just say, fine, go, fine, So it is in their best interest to keep the argument going. That's why it's so important for you to, really work on your, I'm really sorry, I got him, okay. So that's the no fight. But sometimes that doesn't work. Probably 90% of the time that doesn't work. So here's the strategy for when that doesn't work. Because listen, you all have hard and busy, stressful lives. And that takes a lot of self-control to be able to do that. Because you're like, it's really hard. If you're exhausted and you've got other kids and you've got other issues at work or family or going on, you might not have the reserves it takes. So this is what happens when it does get out of control. This is a strategy to help you, so this is something to work towards, the no one, but understanding that that's hard to do. Okay, the pushing button one. This is when you lose it. Okay, this is when it is just an all-out. You're screaming, they're screaming, and it's just an all-out battleground. And here's the thing about this kind of a fight, is that oftentimes this just leads to slamming doors and running out of the house and taking phones away and grounding them, that things that you're gonna get the phone back, that maybe they can't be grounded because they got a championship basketball game that night. So it's like you grab at something to get back. It's all about control, right? You're grabbing at straws to show who's boss. I'm in control. But the fact is, you're not in control anymore. That's the little secret about parenting a teenager. You're actually not in control anymore. And you can be in control, but you have to use, you can't, your kid just can say, well, I'm leaving the house, or I'm, no, give me a phone, they'll take the phone. They'll get into a power struggle with you about it. So you need strategy. Okay, so this is what I call the pushing button move. You've lost it, the vein, and when that is, because the veins in your neck, are bursting through, your blood pressure's soaring, your voice has gotten higher, the register is now, the highest ever. And your kid is screaming, and there's not going to be a resolution. There's no way there's going to be a resolution. So this is what you need to do in that instance. And this is really hard, but I know you can do it. And you're going to channel this voice, okay? You're going to say exact words. We're both out of control right now. We need to take a break. Now, I get my mom out of control. Get out of my face. Okay, we're not going to do that. We're both out of control right now. We need to take a break. And then you need to walk away. Okay? Don't then say, so go to your room, or I don't, let me go away. Your kid is not motivated to let this go. Okay? No motivation. They are going to push this as far as they can push it in hopes that they eventually get what they want. So your job is to say, we're both out of control, we need to take a break, and then go away. And don't just walk into the next room, like you're in the family room, and then go walk into the kitchen. Because, they'll just come after you. They're just going to follow you in there, right? They're going to follow you in there, and they're going to try to keep the fight going because it's in their best interest to do that. So your job is to walk away, go take the dog for a walk, go get a cup of coffee, go to the laundry, get yourself completely out of the picture. And here's the thing about conflict in families, is that it is really important for you to model how you do not to not have conflict, because life is full of conflict, but to model how does one resolve conflict. Do people in this house just walk away, slam doors, never resolve, and then just start the next day? Because that's not teaching them. They're going to have conflicts in their jobs, they're going to have conflict with their friends, they're going to have conflict with their lovers, they're going to have the same conflict we all deal with. And what they learn in your family about how to resolve conflicts is going to be what they take with them into all of their other relationships. So if you're a family that if you're a person who's conflict averse and you don't fight at all, that's not good either. Because that person then, learns to just kind of get passive instead of fighting for themselves. Maybe you have a kid who just shuts down and doesn't fight back. That's not good. That's not a healthy sign. That's a bad thing. Okay, so fighting is good. And so, my husband grew up in a family that I like to call the Bickersons. And everything in that family, the first time I met his parents, and, I thought they'd be his behavior, but they just bickered with each other about the stupidest things, complaining, picking on, and it was, and that's not how I grew up. And so, my husband at the time wasn't like that, but somehow after we got married, some of that started to feed into our relationship. Funny how that works, right? So, I decided I had to do a little bit of retraining because I didn't want our daughter to take that on as how we, nitpick because the cabinet door wasn't open and then, whatever. So, we did, and it's been 36 years, so, I think, we figured it out. Sometimes we don't. So this is important. This is what you're teaching them, a lifelong tool, okay? Fighting, okay, you're in the middle of a fight, we're both out of control, we need to take a break, you walk away. Now, some kids will follow you all over. I call them the chasers. And there's a lot of chasers. I mean, they will follow you down into the laundry room, they will come out, they will just follow you around the house. So if you have a chaser, because this is a kid who will not take no. This is what you're going to do. I started telling this as sort of a joke, but then parents started using it, and it really works. So now it's part of the tip. Okay, so you walk away, your kid chases you around, you turn to them and say, in this voice, "Oh, honey, I'm going to take a shower. So I'll be taking my clothes off. Get naked, and you want to stay here. If you have a nudist thing in your family, so this would work for you. But you Californians, I know about the hot tubs and all that, and your kid will just run for the hills. That'll be the end of that. They're not going to really get you naked. So that's, no matter how deep, right? So that's the end of that. Okay, so you take whatever time you do. Maybe it's 15 minutes, maybe it's 20 minutes, maybe it's an hour. Because when you come back this second time, you really need to have it together. Then you go to them. Don't expect them to come to you. Don't expect apology. Just go to, this part of the brain had been out of control. You go to wherever they are and you say, honey, here's what I wanted you to hear. Don't start in with what you want them to hear. Then it's just going to start all over again. What you're going to say is, tell me what it is you want me to hear. Now, what's happened is that their brain has also had a chance to calm down. And if they have motivation for whatever the thing is, because it doesn't always have to be a no fight. These fights, happen all the time. So it may be that they now can sit for a second and say, wait, I really want this to happen. I'm going to come back. They're calmer and they can come back at it in a different way. So when you say, tell me what it is you wanted me to hear, they might say it in a different way. And they also might have a different plan, because they went home and started telling my parents, said, no, so my parents, my sister, I said, no, Joani, my parents, but let's get to figure out something different. So now they might come to you with something else that you could work with. So then you can say, all right, I think that's something, we can work with. Or, it's still gonna be a no. But this time, when it's a no, you're calmer, you are anticipating that that's a possibility. Okay, you're anticipating that the no, but now you're in control, and now you can do the no one. You can say, I get it. I had a parent whose daughter, 15-year-old daughter, wanted to go to an all-day concert. And this is in, a big concert venue around me. And so she wanted to, it was on Saturday. And this mom worked all day, so she couldn't, normally she would have gone, not stay with the kid, but be on site. Because these big concerts could get out of control. But she couldn't be there. And the other parent that was willing to drive the girls, and it was gonna be 2 or 3 of them who were gonna drive the girls, basically said, well, I have to do it early, so I'm gonna drop you off at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I'll pick you up at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And this mother, it wasn't safe to leave the kids, 15-year-old girls, unsupervised for an entire day at this concert. And so she had to say, so her no was completely reasonable, the mother's no. But for the daughter, she was crazy. Because now, she couldn't go, but these other parents were letting their kids go. So she was right when she said, the other parents are letting their kids go. It's not going to badmouth the other parents. But so they got into a ginormous fight, screaming, and things got really out of control. And then, when the mother called me, and I said, well, it's a little late now, but but that would have been an opportunity to say, oh, honey, I get it. Oh, it must feel so bad to know that your friends are going to do something that you can't do, and I'm so sorry. To just be on her side. Let's figure this out another time, and I'll take you girls, and I'll make a plan for it. Find a concert you really want to go to, but this one you can't go to, and I'm so sorry. And what's going to happen? The girl will cry. She'll probably say, I hate you, go to her room. But the fact is, at least her mom would have understood how hard that particular situation was. And that is hard for a teenager to see that her friends are going to be able to do something that they can't do. It's realistic for them to get disappointed. Doesn't mean you have to give in, but it means you can understand it. And so that's a really, really important piece of that pushing one. Okay. The last one is what I call the crossing the line fight. So, can you blip out on your name? So, I might have to swear if you do. So sometimes your kids really cross the line. And I don't mean like, I hate you, but like, they are really, they get cruel. Really, and I'm not talking about sarcastic cruel, but really, maybe they swear at you, they, give you the F word, I hate you, you and this and that, and so they really cross the line. And again, what usually happens is, don't you ever talk to me that way again. But they just did. So that, that doesn't work. So here's what I want you to do when you're a kid, because truly, no kid should speak disrespectfully. But just saying don't speak disrespectfully to me, it's like, they know that. I mean, kids know they're not supposed to speak disrespectfully to their parents or to anybody. But when they get all revved up, they lose control. Doesn't mean you excuse it. It absolutely does not mean you excuse it. But I would just want you to understand that once they lose it, and they need to know what that means when they really lose it. So here's what you're going to do. So if they have, just sworn at you, or I hate you, they really, with the venom, they have crossed the line, and every family has a different line, then here's what you're going to do. In a very calm voice, you're going to say, I can't believe that you would talk to me that way, in a calm voice, not don't scream. And then you're going to turn around. There's two parts to this, so don't get worried. Then you're going to turn around and you're going to walk away. Okay? So you're going to completely disengage. You don't have to lecture them on how they should speak to you. They know that they've crossed the line. And as soon as you, as if they actually slapped you in the face. They don't do that. I'm sorry, they don't do that. You walk away. And then the next time they come to you, it could be the next morning for a ride to school. It could be they need to go to Staples to get, a poster board for a presentation for biology. It might mean they need a ride, to the mall. It might mean, they need ride to practice the next day. Something, I'm not talking about meals. You're not going to take their meals away. But what you're going to say is, teens need you for everything. So it's going to happen. It might happen within the next 15 minutes. Because the other thing that happens with teenagers is once they explode like that, then they've had this cathartic moment and they're like done. And they'll come back to you as if nothing happened. 15 minutes later, go, can I have a ride to the mall? You said you were going to, go and we can go get some new jeans today. And you're like, are you kidding me? Seriously? You think I'm going to take you to the mall? And then you might do something like that instead of that sarcastic voice. And so here's what I want you to say instead. When they have crossed that line and then they come back to you, as if nothing happened, or they want you to then go ahead and do everything you usually do with them, here's what you're going to say. You're going to say, in this tone, you're going to say, honey, I would have, and fill in the blank, I would have driven you to the mall, I would have taken you to so-and-so's house, I would have driven you to school, I would have whatever. But when you said, and say back to them what they said to you, this is a really important part of this, because what's happened with kids today is that they are completely desensitized to language. And because so much of what they say is online in some fashion, whether through a social, through texting or, or Instagram or whatever, they are desensitized to what language actually sounds like. And I want you to say back to them what they said to you. Not like in a sarcastic way, well, I don't want you to do that. But I want you to say, when you said X to me, I don't really, not like her, I'm not going to, no, I'm not going to take you today. It's not like for the rest of their life. It's just that, it's for that moment. And what I want them to understand is that relationships are reciprocal. And that when people treat each other badly, when someone treats somebody badly, you don't like run around and do something nice for them. You don't like roll over, and business as usual. So the consequence is withholding yourself. It's not taking their phone away. It's not grounding them on Friday night, because those have no relationship to what the violation was. This is a relationship violation. This is not a phone violation. This is not a curfew violation. So you want to make sure that what your consequences are for what things happen bear some connection. Otherwise, it won't connect. It will absolutely not connect to them. So, for example, I had this mom who she was a divorce. She remarried this man, and he had 3 kids. She had 3 kids, and she was having a really difficult time with her 14-year-old daughter, and she was guilt-ridden, even though there was nothing, she had a right to get remarried and be happy, and, the kids, whatever. She didn't have to apologize for what she did. She did it well, she transitioned well, she did it as well as anyone does those things. But her daughter was having a very hard time and became very abusive to her mother, and the mom, because she all felt so guilty, even though she didn't need to, but she was that kind of person, she allowed this to go on for quite a long time. And this girl just pushed her mother around. Just, really pushed her around. And so, she called. And so, we were working on what happens when her daughter got abusive to her. And, because mostly she just cried. I mean, she would feel so bad. So, luckily, I knew there'd be in the next event. So we had talked about strategy. And so her daughter loved getting into a fight on the way to school, because she knew, and lots of kids do this, they love to ask you to do something, or can they do something, or after something, because they know that you don't want them to go into school mad. So for them, the drive to school, or just before school, is prime time for them to try to get something that they want, because, they know you don't want, because, they got a quiz, you don't want to be upset, So the girl, that was like a favorite time for her to bring something up, and the mother, said, no, it was unreasonable or unsafe, I don't remember what the thing was. And so, normally they would have gotten into a huge fight, the girl would have been swearing at her mother and being unbelievably abusive, and the mother either would have given in or wouldn't, but it would be a terrible fight. So we had worked on this, and school was like 15 minutes from her house, it wasn't like, the kids 5 miles, whatever. And so she stopped the car. She didn't say one word. She did not say one word, okay? She stopped the car. She took her keys, and the mom just got out of the car, and, this little, her little town center was, 10 minutes away. The mother walked to Starbucks, got a cup of coffee, left the girl speechless, sitting in the car. Because this is not the way it used to go. And, so now she was going to have to walk, maybe get detention. She was late, whatever. That was not the mother's problem. And this girl was so shocked that she spent like the whole morning texting her mother going, "Mommy, I'm so sorry, Mommy." It was so surprising for her, the daughter, to not be able to push every button in that mother and just, and over time, don't expect that any of these tips that I'm going to give you, by the way, it's not like done and, one and done. Remember that change takes time. And think about how you taught your kids please and thank you. Remember all those please and thank you? And how did you teach please and thank you? Every single time for like 4 years. They would, every day, multiple times a day, "I want a snack." What do you say? "Please, can I have a snack?" And then and then what do you say? "Thank you." And then every time they would go in a store and stuff, "What do you say? Please, and you over and over and over again until that became so integrated in your team that, please and thank you, they don't even think about it, it's just like what they do. And so all of these tips that I'm giving you, it's going to take time for change to happen, right? I mean, you have to be consistent. The most important thing is your consistency. That you are consistent about this, because if you do it one time, and then you do it the second time, it's like, it doesn't work. She said it was going to work, and now, all right, don't blame me. Not my problem. But you have to give it some time for it to go. Okay? So those are the 4 facts. Okay, moving on. Okay, so these are These are particular changes in the teenage brain that affect your teen's behavior. Okay? So when I say sequential thinking not, that means kids don't think things through. It's not that they can't. Okay? It's not that they don't know how. Thinking things through would be this. You know that if they would take their shower the night before, and they would lay their clothes out, and then they would pack their backpacks, and they would put their sports equipment by the door so that you wouldn't get that call every single day of something new. I forgot my math book, could you bring my knee pads? The coach said if I don't have my knee pads, I can't play soccer. And you're like, you love soccer. You love soccer, and yet, you forgot your knee pads! Okay, so what happens is that teens, I mean, this is like all kids sort of have a case of ADD. Okay, so it's like, and if you have a kid who actually has ADD, then you're going to have like a kid that has a double whammy here. So what happens is, they get caught up in that emotional place. Maybe in the morning, maybe mornings are just, they're so distracted in the morning. Why? They're getting texts. The texts come in like rapid fire. What are you wearing? I don't know. What are you wearing? Where are you sitting? What am I going to do? It's like all these things going on. And, you're downstairs yelling, don't forget your mom! Don't forget your phone! And you're like, I know, I have it, leave me alone! So it's like, all right, I'm going to say that. That's all I'm going to go for that. So, they are literally driven to distraction. And this is also, that can happen with risky behavior, teens and risky behavior. Because avoiding risky behavior takes thinking things through. It's saying, gee, I get that if I, go to a party and I get really trashed, or there's parents that, let's say I go to somebody's house and my parents told me that I'm not allowed to go to people's houses where there's no supervision. But, oh, I want to go so badly and all my friends are going and I want to go too. Then I'm thinking, well, my parents told me that if they find out that I've done X, Y, Z, I'm going to be grounded. That is nowhere. Your punishment about what's going to happen to them if they do it. And that's why parents are like always surprised. It's like, well, they knew what the consequences were. No, they didn't. Yes, you told them a million times, but it's not just about saying don't do something, or you better remember. You better remember, or you're not allowed to, not strategies, okay? Those are not going to impact their behavior. You're not allowed to go to somebody's house with no supervision. And then, of course, they go to, and if you do, you're grounded. And then, of course, you find out that, they were in a house without supervision. And you're like, well, you're grounded. But, they will repeat that behavior 1,000 times. No matter how many times they get grounded, they won't remember. Because what you need to teach them is what to do in a situation where their thinking is going to be challenged. And that means teaching them strategy. So I'll do sort of a risk behavior one, and then just like a forgetting one, because forgetting is just a thematic issue that happens with all teens. It's not just your teen. You're not the only person who has a kid who's disorganized and doesn't remember things, and you get the call 1,000 times a day. So the reason they keep having this repeat behavior is because you've never figured out how to help them remember. That's the work. The work isn't the don't do it. The work is let's come up with a strategy for remembering. So I worked with this parent once whose son was, engaged in 1,000 activities. He was, busy boy. And he just never, there was always something. The parent would get the call every day or text every day. I need my math book. The teacher told me. And you get the call about the math book, and that if your kid forgets the math book one more time, the teacher's policy in the class is if you don't bring a book to class, you get a 0 for the class. And that if they have X number of zeros, it affects their grade. And then if they get a bad grade, then that could affect, what the course they get to take, whether it's an honors course or an AP course or something. And then if they don't, if that screws up, then, they're not going to get to college. And if they're not going to get to college, then they're not going to get a good job. And then if they don't get a good job, you're going to have to support them for the rest of their life. There's a lot of kids that happens. So you're doing all that sequential thinking. So when that call comes in about the math book, you might say, how many times did I ask you? Did you remember the math book? Oh, yeah, this should be fun. This is the most fun. I'm bringing the math book. And of course, you run the math book over and blah, blah. Okay. So what happened with this kid is the parents, both parents, were very type A. And they were highly organized, highly organized. And so this was driving them crazy because they did not understand why their kid was so scattered. And he was so scattered because a million things he was thinking about. He looked in the mirror, maybe he had a pimple that day, you know, and yeah, he was gonna get the math book, and he goes, pimple. And it was like, oh, you know, and then he's like, focus on the pimple, then he gets a text from, you know, somebody else, and, you know, the math book is like nowhere to be found, okay? So, this kid, very different, so his parents were both, you know, list makers, you know, they had the calendars on computers, you know, and so they, you know, they were begging the kid to make a list. Like, he would just make a list the night before, everything he needed, and the parents would say, you know, it just feels so good when you just check off that list, you know, and, you know, everything, you know, it's like so, honey, it feels so great. And so, like, in a moment of weakness, the kid was like, you know, fine, you know, let's make the list. So, you know, make the list. And I actually get this because I'm an anti-list person. Because I grew up with my mom who was crazy with the lists. And I'd come home from school, I'd have a list about what chores I had to do, and then I had to, and it's like, now I will go to the supermarket 10 times in one day, rather than make a shopping list. Because like, I'm not gonna make a list maker. So anyway, so the parents make, and the kid like made the list, and then, you know, it worked for like a day or two, and then, you know, the call came. One of them ended up getting a call. And, you know, where was the list? It was like, you know, under his bed, you know, under his coat kid, you know, because it wasn't, he was not a list maker. That's not how his brain, this kid was very artistic. He had a very different kind of a brain. So first thing to remember is your kids do not have your brain. You know, they are not the same as you, and just because lists work for you, it doesn't mean that lists will work for your kids. Yes, it is an organizational tool for people who like words, right? But if you're not a person who uses words to organize their thoughts, you know, then that's not going to work for them. But this kid was, you know, was into, he was an art, he did art, a lot of art, and he was color, you know, color spoke to him. He was like an underliner, you know, he'd use highlight pens and all that. So my suggestion was to go to Starbucks, because that, do I want some coffee? It was to go to Staples and buy multicolored Post-it notes. And pick out the colors that corresponded to the colors of whatever he needed. So, you know, his math book was blue, his gym equipment was red, you know, for the team was red, you know, whatever, you know, worked in terms of that kid's, that he needed to remember. And then what they were going to do, and they, you know, they planned this with the kid. It was like Italian, you know, I said, sit down and find out how, you know, what would be some ways. Sometimes it might be having a tone on their phone, like a certain ring. You know, maybe they're really into music, and you can program into their phone, you know, this song means math book. This, you know, be creative. Parenting a teen, you have to be creative. So whatever speaks to your kid. So they did the Post-it notes. And on the door jamb that led out to the garage, which is, you know, that's the exit that this kid used every single morning. The night before, the parents would remind the kid, don't forget to put your pieces of paper up. And so on the door jamb, you know, would be whatever he needed for school the next day. And then when he walked out the door, which is the last place he could see on the door jamb, and he could make a mental note in his head, do I have everything that I need? Now, if at that point he chose, maybe he went, oh, you know, down with my math book upstairs. Now, at that point, and it's up there, he chooses to ignore it because he doesn't want to walk up the stairs. You know, kids aren't inherently lazy. You know, they don't like to do that. So he, you know, he leaves it downstairs. I mean, he leaves the book upstairs and he leaves the house. Then when that call comes in, all you need to do is say, and all they needed to do is say, gee, I'm sorry it didn't work out for you today. You know, better luck tomorrow. You hold them responsible, or you retool the, you know, but you come up, it's the strategy. So the same thing with risky behavior. You know, saying to your kid, I get you're going to be in situations that you've never been in before. And that is what teenage life is about. They are going to be in situations they have no experience. You know, they don't, just because you've told them they're not allowed to do something, doesn't mean they know what to do in that situation. Because they care a lot about what their friends think. And so, if there's going to be a house that, you know, that they're going to somebody's house, whether it's after school or on the weekend, and there's no family, there's no parents home. The parents are out to dinner, you know, they found out through, you know, all the texting, and here's the house, here's the open house. And so so now they're in a dilemma, because they know on some level, they do remember on some level, that they're not supposed to go to a house that doesn't have supervision. But they see all their friends going into the house. And so now they have like this dilemma. Do I go, do I not go? They're not thinking about the punishment. They're like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. And then they just go because all their friends are going, they want to go to. And I completely get that. Completely get that. So dealing with a situation like that, you say, you know, I get you might be in a situation where all your friends are going to XYZ's house and the parents are at home, and I totally get that you might want to go. Let's come up with a strategy, what you could say. And so maybe you know, it's important to them to be able to save face because they're worried that their kids are going to think they're losers. That's like a, you know, what other kids think about them is totally in the driver's seat. We call it the imaginary audience. It is this worry about what other kids think about them. That's why this whole social networking thing has become so heightened for them in a really unhealthy way. Because it's, you know, it's the first generation of kids that really are being judged so publicly about everything. And it can, you know, it's humiliating. You know, it's a public humiliation if in fact they put themselves in a position to be like that. So you need to understand that. I get that this is going to be let's come up with something you could say. Or, you know, go in for 5 or 10 minutes and text me, and then I'll come and you can walk down the block and I'll pick you up. Or you can say, you know, because you can say, you know I'm going to find out about this stuff. And let's come up with a strategy first, so then you don't end up having to get grounded. Because I get it's really hard to do that. So again, when you let them know that you understand these are hard situations, that you know, it's hard to do the right thing. Teens often don't do the right thing, not because they're bad kids, not because they're sneaky kids, because they don't know what else to do. They're in, you know, they don't, you know, maybe they even do want to do some of that stuff, or maybe they just like, well, what am I supposed to say? They did this really interesting, it was a show on NBC, like, you know, I don't know, maybe it was a couple of years ago. And it was called Not My Kid. And it was about it was a teenage bullying. And they had a group of boys and a group of girls. And they did like a setup where they had actors playing a bully and a victim. And they were, you know, they had instructed the bullies to be brutal. You know, so when the girl situation was like something to do with fashion, like in a fashion trying on clothes or something. And so the actress was an overweight young woman, and the bully, you know, was, you know, this was acting. And the bully was, you know, was saying to this girl, you know, you can't wear that, you know, being really cruel to the girl. And the boy situation was like a sports clinic, and the bully was calling, you know, another boy gay, and, you know, kids in this, you know, you're gay, you know, really sort of playing on that end of it. And then there were all these kids, and they wanted to see, the experiment was to see if kids would step in and do the right thing and stop this potential situation. And all the parents were sitting behind the one-way mirror, and they would say to the parents, what do you think your kid will do? And the parents were all like, oh, we have talked about bullying with our kids. And, you know, they know that bullying is wrong, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And of course, and it was across the board. Of course our kids will stop it, because we've really taken care of business on this one. And we're a good family, and we have good values, the whole thing. And then you watch these kids like deers in headlights. You could see what was going on in their head. I want to say something, but I can't say anything, because if I said something, you know, what would the other kids think about me? And so only, you know, so maybe there were 9 or 10 kids, you know, in the two, when there was bullying the victim, so, you know, to 12 kids in these things. And out of all those groups, there was only one in either gender that stepped up to these bullies. And so, you know, because they literally, and then when they talked to the kids afterwards, they said, what got in your way? And all of the kids said, we didn't know what to say. Literally didn't have the words. And that's your job, but not in a lectury kind of way. But from I get you're going to be in a situation that is going to challenge you. Of course you will. You know, of course you will. So let's try to figure out a way that makes you feel like that you can stay safe. It's all about safety. So it's acknowledging their inexperience. It's acknowledging their impulsivity because of this emotional brain that they get, oh my God, you know, they get all charged up. And what you're doing is planting seeds. And over time, they will begin to take, what happens when you don't take seed, you take roots. Roots, thank you. And so that's the reason you do this. So eventually, those will be up there. And they're like, oh yeah, I know I can do this. I worked with, I had a lot of girl examples because, this is a particularly good one. I had a mom call me with a group of 13-year-olds at a sleepover. And she's upstairs in the kitchen, they're in the basement, it's early, not like midnight, it's like 8:30. They're all in the basement, and she hears like uproarious laughter. Laughter. And she was like, oh, I wonder what's so funny, I want to go downstairs. So it wasn't like, oh, I wonder what they're up to. She was like, I want to, they sound like it'll be fun, I want to go see what's going on. So she goes downstairs, and they're all on the computer, someone an iPad or something, and they're all on this site called Chat Roulette. So Chat Roulette is basically like live sex shows. So a lot of kids go on them. They're like, it's like it's very titillating. So you actually go on the site Chat Roulette. It's not an app. Go on Chat Roulette, and then you put in, cute teenage boy. So in front of, on the screen was a cute teenage boy masturbating on his bed in real time, and the girls, these little 13-year-old girls, were watching this boy masturbate, and and they were like, it was just like completely outrageous. Now, I'm sure no parent had predicted that this would be something you would have to prepare their children for, but you do. Okay, I mean, there are things that happen in sleepovers where alcohol and booze and drugs are there, or I had a parent call me, this was this year, it was February, a ski trip, a lot of sex stuff, but this happens to be, there was a 12-year-old, there were a bunch of 12-year-olds, but they were going on a ski trip, like a bus thing. And so the kids were told not to bring their cell phones on the trip, but a lot of kids did anyway. And so this one little boy, this 12-year-old, was sitting with his three friends, two friends, on a bench seat in the bus. And so anyway, the kid gets off the bus, mom picks him up at the end of the day, or dad picks him up at the end of the day, and they were like, oh, did you have a good time? Thinking, oh, this would be like, who wouldn't want to go with your friends skiing for a day? Like the best thing ever. And the kid starts sobbing, completely starts sobbing. And parents were like, what happened? And it took him a while to get it out, but he was sitting on the bus with his buddies, and they were watching porn on their smartphones. And he had never, and they're not just watching, our old porn, I don't know what you watch, but I mean, we didn't watch porn because there wasn't any, but you watched, you had maybe, Playboy magazine was the worst, all boys just looked at that. So, but it was very misogynistic and, very just, it was, for a 12-year-old, his first introduction to sexual activity, it was really devastatingly upsetting for him. And so, these are the kinds of experiences where you say, you might someday be in a situation where, and he didn't know what to do. And he was afraid that if you didn't sit there and watch it, then they would call him a pussy. He said, use those exact words. And so he was afraid to say no and to walk away. So it's anticipating situations your kids are going to be in that are going to challenge themselves. Understand how hard they are and give them the language, whether it's a situation where there's drugs and alcohol, you can tell them you're an allergy medication, you can say, I'm going to like bloodhounds, we'll smell your breath. You can say, with texting, you can say, don't text that kind of stuff to me because my parents check my texts, my texts, for that, and, they'll call your parents if they, so you give them the things that they can do. You understand they need to save face. Not like, well, you need to speak up for yourself. Not going to happen. And maybe there's some really confident kid out there, who'll be able to do that. But generally speaking, kids are so vulnerable at this age that, yes, you have taught them to do the right thing and they will get there. But in this moment of hyper self-consciousness, of overwhelming brain, of too many feelings, of, they end up doing the stupid thing because they're so overwhelmed. So that's why you need your kids to talk to you, because, you need to get them to come up with, and help them with the brainstorming. Don't just tell them, here's what I think you should do. You don't want to problem solve for them, because then it's not their ideas, it's your ideas. But you create conversations around them, before they go out on a weekend night. Tell me what, your safety plan is for tonight. If you've got high school kids and they're going out on the weekends, every single time they go out, what's your safety plan for tonight? And, they'll roll their eyes, they'll say, and it's like, you don't leave the house, buddy, until you can tell me what your safety plan. What if there's alcohol at the party? What if and again, they may want to do it anyway, but what you're doing is making them think sequentially. You're making them think about, and that's what kids don't do naturally. So it's not just your kid, because they get caught up in a moment. So someday that actually will stay there, right? Eventually that will, and the same thing whether they're going to, a Saturday, a Friday night lights game, tell me where your safety plan is tonight, because, or you go to a sleepover. What's your safety plan tonight if, someone brings booze in? What's your safety plan if, they're watching, porn or, doing something online that makes you feel uncomfortable? What could you say? Oh, you could go to the bathroom and text me, and I'll come in, I'll just call the house and say there's a family emergency, I have to come and pick you up. You give them, you help them come up with these strategies, rather than just getting mad every time they do, they disappoint you. Because they are going to disappoint, because they're not thinking with the same brain that you have. So it's an acknowledgement that these are, and they are challenged by way more than you were challenged with. It's not just sex, drugs, and rock and roll now. I mean, there's, a lot of, I had a parent who had a 12-year-old boy, and he was kind of a shy kid, she said, and he wasn't like that social, not like in a really bad way, but he was just 12. He just hadn't kicked in yet. And so he was on his phone, they were sitting watching TV together, and they were on the phone, and he was texting. And she was actually excited, because it was like, oh, he's got some friends, that's a good thing, because this wasn't a kid, it was, texting 24/7. And so then he went in to take a shower, and he left his phone on the coffee table. So she was like, ooh, opportunity. So she picks up the phone, and she sees indeed that he was talking to a girl, which she was excited about. I was like, oh, there's a girl. And so the girl writes, so, what are you doing? What's up? And here's this 12-year-old boy. He writes back to her, and his mother sitting right next to him. I'm jacking off. Okay? He wasn't jacking off. Okay? He was sitting next to his mother on the couch. The mother reads the text. She calls me up. Judy, nauseous, she said. And, I said, well, what did you do? She goes, I took his phone away. And I said, well, wait, we didn't teach you to talk like this to girls. And, she just flipped out, of course, naturally, who wouldn't? And, and that was it. And I said, okay, I get consequence, he gets his phone taken out. So it would be appropriate to have your phone taken away for, a short amount of time. I said, but there's an important part too here. And the important part too is to say, I get how this might have happened. Rather than just shaming him and making him feel humiliated. I said, I get how, and I said to her, I get how this happened. This kid is never, isn't that social. And I'm sure he had heard girls like it when you talk to her. They like that. That's what he heard. And so for him, unjacking off was the dirtiest thing you could think of. Thank God that was the dirtiest thing to think of. And so what you need to say to him is, you might think that. You might have heard that girls think this is what they like. And first of all, you have to understand that just like we checked your phone, this girl has parents. They probably check her text messages, and they could call the principal. They could call us. So you have to, and he never had experience, and he was new with the whole texting thing. He wasn't thinking it through. He wasn't thinking, oh, this is a really inappropriate thing to say. I don't think we'll use that language. No, he was like, oh yeah, it's a girl. I have to say, that emotional brain took over. He was excited. And so yes, there should always be a consequence, but there should always be a part two. I get how this happened. Let's figure out what you could do the next time. Let's figure out how else I get you think that there's other ways that you could be funny, or what else you could say that you think girls would like to hear, besides, saying that. And so again, rather than just saying, we did not raise you to do this, and I don't know if you ever do this again, blah, 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 that doesn't help him. That's not helping him the next time he's feeling, sexting challenged. So that's really important. There was this, yes, I have a second, I just want to tell this. There was a great show on CNN about 2 months ago called Being 13, and if you can find it, it's a great show to watch. And it was, they did a research study, and they took 200 13-year-olds, and they were able to, with the kids' permission, they were able to grab all their online screen stuff. Any text that they'd written, any posting on Instagram, whatever they were on, the kids gave them permission. Because you know why? Because you're sitting there going, why would a kid give permission to give all that to somebody else? Why? Because you're going, oh my God, I could be on television! That's what they're thinking, because some of them made it on television, okay? So So they grabbed all this stuff for a couple of years, and then they brought a bunch of kids into the studio. Anderson Cooper was the host, and they brought in, about 20, 30 kids, and they were all sitting in chairs like this. And so Anderson picks on one of the kids, one of the boys, and says, so tell me, is your online behavior the same as your in-person behavior? Like, would you say the same things online, in person to somebody? And he goes, oh, absolutely, I'm really the same, in person and online. And, Cooper, kept asking, he said, no. So then they flashed a screen of all of his text messages and postings. And there was so much bad stuff that most of it was redacted, because of the swears and the, sexual language. And, it was, so angry and, and I'm going to kill you, really pretty angry stuff and sexual stuff. And so then Anderson Cooper looks back at this lovely young man, very articulate, dressed nicely, and says to him, so, you said before that you're the same in person, and so is this how you talk to people when you're in person? And of course, the boy looked like he wanted to cry, and it was a very, I think, unethical thing to do to a kid. And of course, no, it's not the same, because when you're online, and this has to do with, that whole thing about social networking, is you will see behavior in your kids if you check if you're monitoring their posts and they're checking their text messages, that you're like, what? That are completely out of character. I can't tell you how many parents who maybe don't check, and then, just start to get suspicious about something and check, and then are completely flipped out about what's on there. And part of it is those are the expectations that your kids have, that other kids have of them. And so they behave online, not in the way that they would behave in person, because there's this expectation that kids want them to behave a certain way. And so it's important to acknowledge that with your kids around social networking, to say, I get there's pressure when you're online and you're in a text message, to talk about, blowjobs and dick pics. The kids, there's a lot of sexual talk on there. It's a lot of it's just, it's not that all girls are running out to give boys blowjobs, but, there's a lot of that kind of sexual stuff going on. It's like teasing and taunting. And they never hear what any of this stuff sounds like. Again, they're completely desensitized to the kind of language. I mean, that's why for that boy to see that in front of him, and then have Anderson Cooper, say as much as he could say, because so much of it he couldn't say on television. That's why part of going online and checking your kids' text messages and what it is that is online is so that they not to say, I can't believe you wrote such disgusting stuff, but to say, let's listen to what this sounds like, and let them hear the language. They are not getting what this language, how disrespectful and how angry and kids throwing around I hate you that that's just the way that's just what they do now, and they don't get it because they're not hearing it from you, and they're not hearing it. And so I want you to get comfortable with the language, because the only way they're going to get comfortable with being uncomfortable is by hearing it from somebody out loud. Okay, moving on. Let's go right to all right. So let's go on to what I call cell phone smarts. Okay. So first of all, no kid should be taking your cell phone to bed. Or conversely, you should just at least just have it shut off so that you don't get into a power struggle of give me your phone, 5 more minutes. So, there's a lot of geeky stuff that happens when you go to sleep. So if you go to bed at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and your kid is still up doing whatever they're doing, that's when a lot of stuff is happening online. So selfies are taken then, inappropriate ones, a lot of things that they don't need to be doing. And also, it's we're raising a generation of kids with sleep disorders, anxiety disorders, depression disorders. I've just never seen it's rampant, and a lot of it is connected to the social networking because it is preying on their insecurity, it is preying on their anxiety, it is preying on their worry about what other people are thinking about them, and you're looking at your use of it with an adult brain, but they're dealing with this from that teen brain, that emotional teen brain, and they can't shut it down. They don't have any discipline to shut it off, and they will be on it as much as they can. And so part of it is limiting opportunity. That making sure that they, and I'm going to go through some other roles, but the nighttime stuff as and I've read, and talked to kids where it's like they can't imagine not having, the phone is the new baby, right? It's like their comfort, so what's happening is that kids are not learning how literally to put themselves to sleep. They're not learning, it's fine for them to read a book or listen to music because that's not interactive. But cell phones are interactive. And you're waiting for something else to happen to respond to. So I don't have a problem with reading in bed to or listening to music. But anything on the cell phone is interactive and it overstimulates the brain. And then there's the blue screen issue, which that's, and this includes iPads, laptops, all of it, done, finished. And so a lot of iPhone has a great, Apple has a great parental control, costs like $5 a month. And you can you do it online, and you tie your kid's phone into it so that you can make it so that it shuts down. Decide with your kid what time you're ready to. I get how important I get how important your friends are to you. I get how you want to check in with them, and it's really important that you get a good night's sleep. And a lot of your kids are texting really late into the night that you don't even know about, and so it's just a bad habit to get into. And so use those parental controls. It works like a DVR. So it will just shut down and then it can turn back on in the morning. And your kids are not like that, especially if you've allowed them to have their phones. I mean, if you have juniors and seniors in high school, that shit may sail. But if you have middle school kids, 9th grade, 10th graders, this is their phone, this is your phone. And you know best. You won't let them eat, tons of junk food. It's funny because parents will be much better about nutrition, than they will be about their phones. Why? Because they're afraid of their kids' wrath. Because your kids, when they, it's crack. It's crack for this generation. So when you try to take their crack away, they're like, oh! They get mad, they get angry. The same thing about enforcing a cell phone break. The one thing that you can do is limit opportunity. It's like a whack-a-mole. We're going to talk about the apps and all of that. But at the least, if they're not on for some period during the night, they are getting a break from the constant barrage of posting and reposting, that whole popularity thing. And I've had parents do this, and for the first month, the kids go, crazy, screaming, yelling, I hate you, blah, blah, blah. But the interesting thing that happens is that then the kids will come to their parents and say thank you. I know you want to go, yeah, right? Because they're relieved. This social networking thing is driving your kids crazy, literally. Okay, it is driving your kids crazy. They can't stop it, and it is addictive, as you know yourself. How many times do you check your Facebook page and your text messages and your, email and your phones? I mean, you find yourself obsessing. Well, times that by, 10 zillion, and also add to that the worry about, when you respond to something on Facebook, you don't really care what people think. I mean, it's not just saying, oh, I hope everything's so pretty. I mean, you don't really care. I mean, you like people to think that your family looks nice, but it's not going to make your day, right? It's not like, oh, everything really great. So this is serious business. I mean, and this is really serious business because, teaching kids to self-calm is an important life skill. Life is very stressful, not just for teens, but in general. And what's happening is that this 24/7 addiction to their phone makes it so the anxiety is just ongoing, right? Because it's like it's always checking, always so it's ongoing. And then they don't know how to shut off. They don't know how to shut their brain off. And they're also not spending time with you, which is one of the worst parts of this whole social networking thing. Because they're up in their bedroom, on their phones, on their laptops, on their iPads, all the devices. And maybe you're in your office on your iPad and your computer and nobody's in the family room watching that huge big screen TV that's been sitting there hasn't been turned on in 3 weeks. And so, that 2-hour time is a time for you to be available to them, to have them come down and watch. I don't want them watching shows on their laptop. I don't want them playing games on their iPhones when they don't have. I don't want them in their room. Because when they're in their room, they're not having an opportunity to shut their brain off and just relax. And they really, really need that. Even if they're doing homework all night long, these parental controls allow you to shut down certain apps so that you can shut down Instagram, you can shut down Twitter, you can shut off, you can shut that stuff off so that maybe they're doing their homework, but they're not interactive. And I know now they have to get in touch with their friends to do the homework on the group text. I mean, there has to be a point at which you say, you need to have some time where we're all turned off. It's really important for their development. And you're the first generation of parents who are dealing with this stuff when you yourself did not have to deal with it as a teen. So you did the sex, drug, and rock and roll business, right? But, so you know what that experience was like, whether you were, the party kid or you didn't do it, but you knew what was going on. But you didn't, as a teenager, deal with this. So they're still children, and they're still developing. And the problem with all this cell phone stuff is we just kind of given them everything, but, not understanding what the developmental impact really is. And, everyone knew that if they ate too much junk food, they could get diabetes. They knew that they needed to have fiber in their diet. They needed to, they knew that too much television was bad. So there was all that stuff, but somehow the social networking piece has gotten away from everybody. And I think it's more dangerous. Let them eat the junk food, but get them off the phones. I mean, that's way more emotionally dangerous than anything else. Look at the number of apps downloaded. There is in the iPhone, and I'm sure in the Droids as well, if you go into your kid's iPhone, first of all, you should always have your kid's password, period. No, this should be an absolute. And if they won't give it to you or they keep changing it on you, then you just give them a flip phone. You say, that's the rule. A phone is not an entitlement, okay? It's not an entitlement. There's no gaming here. My phone is private. Not private. Phone's not private. A diary under your mattress, that's private. That can be private because it's not interactive. But once they're putting stuff online, the whole privacy argument out the window. If it's so private, how come you're posting your entire life's history, no, there's no privacy. It's about safety. This is all about safety. I don't want you to unknowingly get yourself in a situation that can harm you for the rest of your life. That's my job, is to make sure that you're safe. That's what my job is. It's not that I'm nosy. I don't really, you don't have to check, things every 5 minutes, but you need to let them know that you want to make sure that they're saying things that are safe and that things are, being said to them that are safe. So this app business is, again, you can go into your iPhone, their iPhone, and you go to settings, then you go to general, and then you go to restrictions. And when you get to restrictions, there is a place for a password to go in. And that is an internal password that only you have. This isn't their RFID number. This is something. And then once you put that password, it's on their phone. This whole list of things will come up that you can disable. So you can disable the ability to download apps. You could delete every single app on their phone and make it start from scratch, which is my preference. That they come to you, I don't want them to have 1,000 games. I don't want them to have 1,000 TV shows and movies. If they want to watch a movie, they have to come and watch it on the television with you. You don't want, because once you give them the option to just download willy-nilly, then you give them ultimately, if they are not going to be able to shut it off on their own, they need your help. I want them to come to you and say, oh, I heard this great app, everybody's downloading it. And then I want them to have to come to you and they'll say, why do you need to have another app? They don't need 1,000 social networking apps. Because the more they have, the more they use. It's a time suck. It's a time suck, and limiting certain games, TV shows, movies. Those are things they watch with the family or on the big TV. That's why you have it. And they don't watch a movie to go to sleep at night. Maybe they can watch a movie in the car if you're going on a car trip. But I mean, they don't need to have that. It's not like It's saying, well, that's where family, and this is what families do. We hang out in the family room. That's why we have one. And don't be afraid of your kids. Don't be afraid of their anger. It's just a 2-year-old having a tantrum. It's really the same as that 2-year-old when you said, no, you can't have candy till after dinner. And they threw themselves on the floor, and they were kicking and screaming. And it's the same thing. It's that when you say no to that. So, I'm not saying, I'm not coming down like they can't get everything away, they can't have everything. I mean, they can have their Instagram, they can have their, but they don't need 1,000 of them. If you have a kid that's going to be driving soon, I don't know what the driving age is in California, but a good 6 months before they even get their learner's permit, you should start a practice of having them have to sit in the front seat of the car, the passenger seat, no phone. Phone has to be shut off. You want them, it's classical conditioning, you want them to get the feeling of being in a car without having access to their phone. That's not just going to happen naturally, like, oh, I'll get my license and then I won't use my phone anymore. No, they're already addicted to it. You need to get them to be, and know then if they start to fight you on it, I'm going to shut my phone off because you're not getting your license. You know, it's really as simple as that. It's like, this is how the world works. If you want to get your license and be safe, then I have to see, you have to prove to me that you can sit in a car for, 15 minutes and not be on your phone. And if you can't do that, then that's a sign to me that you're not going to be able to do it when you get behind the wheel. Because you just can't, just because you say you're not allowed to drive, and text, and I don't care about hands-free, I don't care about it because I know it's hands-free in California. I don't care about that because they're still distracted by looking down at their phone. There's still a lot of distraction attached to that. So, and when your kids go in the car with you, starting when your kids are like 10 or 11, you should be not on your phone with your kids in the car. I don't care what you do when your kids aren't in the car. But you have to model that behavior for them. You have to say, I want them to hear the words. Hey, honey, shut my phone off. I want to make sure, when I'm driving, that I'm not distracted by the phone. Because I want that line to get planted in their head like the please and thank you. And the only way that's going to get planted is if they hear it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And, and that when you're in the car, even if it's your hands-free, if you want them to be safe drivers, you have got to model the right behavior. Okay, I got 5 minutes here. See, there's so much. All right, so these are, I'm not going to have time to go, but these are just some of the apps that, you have to know about. These are, this YouNow, for example, a lot of kids have YouNow. This is a live streaming app. So kids will use it to, so that, you could be streaming me right now live, and anybody who had YouNow up could be watching me stream. So it's been it was like originally for like musicians to showcase their music. But the kids use it to do, they actually provide things on it. It's kind of like that chat roulette, only it's an app. And then, but kids can buy popularity. So in other words, they can actually make money. So if they do things on this app that other kids like, they get money for it. And so there's an enticement to do more and more outrageous things. So again, you should be going through every app on your kid's phone. You should sit down with them at least, whatever, and go through them and say, what is that app? Tell me how that one works. What's that app? Tell me how that works. What's that app? And then you should go make sure, I have tons of information about that on my blog, because there's new apps coming up all the time. You have to be on top of this. You have to be on top of this. So, you need to be on top of your kids' group texts. What's going on in their social? Not because you want to ground them because they're using bad language, but it's like, wow, there's a lot of, kids are like talking crap about each other behind. That must feel bad. Tell me what that's like. Not like, I can't believe you talk to your friends like that, but tell me what that's like. I mean, so that everybody's kind of looks like they're ganging up on this kid. That must, what is that like for them? So, using the monitoring as a way to teach them about how to be respectful to other people. It's not just going to come naturally. Okay, so this is what I call team-proofing the home. So, your kids are curious. They're seeing the world through a new set of eyes. They are now experimenting with drugs and alcohol. And so, lock up the liquor. The first place that kids get alcohol and drugs is from your house. And, I've had parents, call me, the kids are, one parent called me that her kid had been picked up with a bunch of kids over the summer on a hill that was like behind a police station. Talk about not thinking things through. Like, if you're going to drink in the afternoon, maybe you shouldn't go like behind a police station. Probably not the best place. So they get caught. What were they caught with? Fine bottle of Merlot. Okay? So, they're pretty indiscriminate. That doesn't matter what it is. And your drugs, if you have a medicine cabinet full like mine, but I don't have kids in the house, you got a little oxy from a root canal, or a little Vicodin, and you maybe got your Ambien, and maybe you got a couple of Xanax hanging around. Your kid, it's all in your medicine cabinet. Your kids will go into your medicine cabinet. Don't think that you're not allowed in your bathroom. And if it's not them, it'll be their friends. Everyone's on the lookout. And so you can go to CVS and you can get these boxes that fit right into a medicine cabinet, and you make sure that any of those kinds of drugs are in that box, they're locked and you have the key, and it's a pain in the ass. But, you know that your kids will not be able to access, or their friends will not be able to access those drugs from your house. And it is your job to keep your kids safe and the kids who come to your house safe. Empty house plans. If you're going away for a weekend, and you've stashed your kids are like staying at somebody else's house, and you said, you're not allowed to come to the house when we're not gone. You're like, oh yeah, I never do that. And then so what happens? Some kid says, hey, your parents are away. Gets up on whatever site they're using, Twitter, Instagram. Hey, party at so and so's house, and your kid. Because of worry about what other kids are going to say, that they don't say, my parents are away for the weekend, you're not allowed to come to my house. They're like, oh my God, what am I going to say? I have nothing to say. So what you do is you call your local police department, you will in some home, and I never pronounce this word. And you say, we're going away for the weekend. Our kids are, going to be away, but we do have teens. Can you just do me a favor and drive by a couple of times over the weekend? And then you say to your kid, hey, just want to let you know, I know you're not supposed to come home when we're not here, but just in case any kids get on you about it, just let them know that we've called the cops are going to be coming by for house checks. And so you can say to your friends, oh, my stupid parents, I can't believe they called the cops. But again, that's strategy, okay? It's the strategy. Walk out of here. Strategy. Sneaking out, sleepovers. Kids love to sneak out at sleepovers. You probably did it too. You probably snuck out at sleepovers. And kids bring alcohol into sleepovers. They bring drugs. They look at porn on sleepovers. Sleepovers, you're meant to do like things you're not supposed to do. But now things, the ante's like a little higher now. And if your kids are you're upstairs on the third floor, and your kids are downstairs in the basement, and you go to bed at 11 o'clock and you've done your final check. I mean, the party doesn't start, till way after you start to bed. So my suggestion is that you set your alarm and you say to the kids before you go up, hey, and I can't tell you how many calls I've gotten, parents whose kids who have ended up in the emergency rooms, because they bring the booze in the backpacks, and and these are good kids who they feel comfortable in this house, so they want to see what it's like to get drunk, and then these are like 14-year-olds who then get trashed with a 0.38 alcohol level. So this is a safety issue. And even if you say, my kids were never do that. I had a parent who had 15-year-old boys sleep over. They had locked up all the alcohol, but they forgot about the beer in the beer refrigerator in the laundry room in the basement. And the mom comes down the next morning, and there in the garbage can, or 5 beers or 5 boys. It wasn't like they got trashed. And so the mother comes down and she said, I can't believe you would betray my trust like that and you let the kids drink, she says to her son. And the son says to her, Ma, that's a Boston accent, Ma, you gotta lock up the beer. He said, you can't expect me to say no to my friends. And that's the truth. Because he could not, the vulnerability, worry about what other kids are thinking about them. So your job is to make sure that you do not set your own kids up to fail by making sure that you take care of business. So you go to you say, listen guys, I just want to let you know, I got insomnia, middle of menopause, I got to pee 1,000,000 times, I eat my sleep, I'll be up and down, wink, wink. And then, you set your alarm for 1, 2:30, probably that'll do it. But you make noise, you come down the stairs, and you check in on them. And it's a deterrent, okay? It's a deterrent. They're knowing that you're gonna keep checking. They're not gonna, maybe someone snuck something in, but maybe they won't get completely trashed because they know that you're gonna be checking. So, when you have kids coming to your house for parties or hanging out in your basement on a Saturday night, backpacks stay upstairs, jackets stay, kids are really good at stashing and check your outdoor areas. A lot of times kids will stash stuff in the bushes during the day when you're out doing errands, and then they walk out your basement door if it's, if you're open to the that patio or whatever, and then they go out and they bring it in, but they came in empty-handed. You gotta sleuth. You just gotta sleuth. This is all there is to it. And it's not about your kids being sneaky and they are, but they need to be saved from themselves until they're ready to be. So it's not expecting the worst. It's just anticipating what kids do and getting out of the not my kid piece of this, and getting that they're curious, they're impulsive, they're spontaneous, they're emotional. This is all normal. So you just expect it, rather than being disappointed when they screw up. Expect that they will. And think about how you can keep them as safe as you can, when they have better controls and they will take better care of themselves. So that's the last thing I have to stop. But after all this, and you're going to walk home and go, oh my God, don't run home now and change like your whole life. Take one step at a time. Something will stand out from tonight. But the most important thing, honestly, is to find the fun. That your kids are becoming new and exciting individuals, and they are finding new passions and new friends assessments, and they're testing out behaviors, and they're testing out identities, all the things that you did, and it's really fun. And so if you can engage with them in the things that are exciting and interesting to them, not the things you want them to be excited and interested in, then they will feel your excitement about who they're becoming rather than your disappointment and not having them be what you want them to be. They have a right to become who they want to become, and they'll be different than you, which is fun. That's good news. You don't need clones. You don't need a family clone. You need a kid who is his own person or her own person, who is using this time to test out, different ways of being in the world, and enjoy that part of it. That's what I love about working with parents and teenagers. And for years and years and years, I was a therapist and worked with teens for years. And then I thought, I think I'll just do the parents now. But that's the fun of raising a teen. And you know what? This is a moment in time. They're all going to be amazing kids, in 5 to 7 years. And this is all going to go away. I mean, that's the truth. This is just a moment in time. The most of your life with your kids are going to be after they're teenagers. So don't get bogged down. Don't keep them safe. Keep the communication going. Be open to, helping them to anticipate and experience life. So thank you all for coming. Fill out your, thank you. And if you wouldn't mind filling out your evaluations. Thank you. Sorry.